there, I'm Paige, and you are about to take Entrelac. Entrelac is a really cool technique, and it's a knitting technique, but it looks like weaving. It's kind of the best of both. I have several examples, one of which I'm wearing. This is the class color that Brenda and Heather designed for us. I absolutely love it. But I also have a couple other colors, so you can kind of think about what you want to do and how you want to do it. You have a lot of options. My first sample was a solid red one. And that is done in just Cascade 220 that I had in my stash. It's pretty straightforward. I did do some fun little texture, so you can see that there's like a little seed stitch square. There's a couple garter stitch squares. It'd be really easy to incorporate some cabling, lace, whatever you want to do, have fun with it. This is called the Spice Rack cowl because you can spice it up, or Spice Rack hat because you can spice it up however you want to. Okay. The second one I made is a gradient. I feel like gradients are just made for Entrelac. It's really cool. So you start with one end and you work your way up. It's a really subtle color change, but it kind of, you can follow the colors and you can kind of see how we work back and forth. It's not properly in the round, but we make squares one direction, we turn our work, and then we work our squares the other direction. And you just keep going back and forth until we get to the very top and you'll join in the round. So another option, and that's what I've done with this hat, is I used a gradient and I worked from both ends of it. So I started off in a purple and I did my ribbing in purple, and then I did my triangle, so that little foundation row, I did that in green from the other side of the ball, and then I switched back to purple, back to green, back to purple, and then the colors were changing as the hat went up. So it's kind of like having two gradients. It did feel a little bit blasphemous to cut up a gradient because it was so perfect and beautiful in the ball, but that's just one way to play with it. Side note, you will not use the whole 100 grams that you were provided with. So if you have one color that you like more, start with that one. Because this is the very middle of the ball and I love it, and I'm going to have to find something to do with it because it's really pretty. So these, my ones in the gradient, or my gradient hats, are worked just plain knitting. I talked about how you can spice it up earlier with cables or garter stitch, seed stitch, whatever. But you certainly don't have to. You could do the whole thing in garter stitch, and that could be a really fun textured way to do this. Sorry, I have a 3-year-old right here singing. You also can adjust the width of the hat and the length of the hat. So I kind of had it, here we go. It's a little slouchy. And if you don't like that slouch, that's a really easy thing to fix. Here you can kind of see it from the back. So that's really easy to fix. You would remove stitches in multiples of 8. So we cast on, forgot my notes. So we'd be casting on 96 stitches. Sorry about that. And so if you are changing your cast on, you can maybe do that once or twice. It does make your ribbing a little snug. Just because of the nature of Entrelac, it's wider, and that's what makes it look so poofy from, directly from the ribbing. So I would suggest casting on the 96 stitches in the ribbing, and then if you want to adjust, knit a row after the ribbing, just knitting, but then you would decrease in multiples of 8. So, if you decrease 8 stitches evenly over a knitting row, then that gets rid of one section, tightens up your hat a little bit. It does change your crown math at the end, so that's just something you'll have to be aware of if you're making that particular change. If you have really big hair, that's awesome. I'm jealous. But you can also add 8 stitches, and you can do that from the get-go by adding 8 to the cast on, or multiples of 8, or you can do kind of the opposite where you knit your ribbing, and then on that plain knitting row you would add 8 stitches, evenly across. And so that's really easy to customize. It's a fun hat. It's this kind of starting point. Patterns are suggestions. Make it your own, make it fun, and just have fun with it, learn lots, and don't be surprised if you end up making 2 or 3, because they are pretty fun to make. Anyhow, so there are 4 videos following this one, and so you'll do your ribbing and then you will watch the first video. That is how we make our foundation row of triangles. There we go. Second video is how to turn it around and start that first layer of squares. And third video is how to turn that around, go the opposite direction. And the fourth video is how to tie everything off into that crown and do all of your tidy decreases so it's not so bunchy at the end. Okay, you know how to get a hold of me if you have any questions. So let's make a hat. Enjoy.